My name is Rafael Palmeiro, and I am a professional baseball player. Let me start by telling you this. I have never used steroids today.
Rafael Palmeiro, once hailed as one of the greatest baseball players of all time, saw his legacy get tainted by a steroid scandal that forever deprived him of the biggest baseball honor. Before we dive in any further, please don't forget to subscribe. Palmeiro's story truly begins at the moment when his life, as he had always known it, came to a screeching halt. It was March 2005, a time when steroids had evolved from being just a baseball issue into a full-blown national crisis. The stakes were incredibly high. Federal prosecutors were gearing up for the Balso laboratory case, a massive legal battle involving Barry Bonds' personal trainer and other high-profile figures. Mark McGwire's name had also been pulled into the spotlight, linked to a steroid ring that the FBI had investigated back in the 1990s. To add fuel to the fire, just a month before this pivotal moment, Jose Canseco dropped a bombshell on the baseball world with his explosive memoir. In his book, Canseco didn't hold back, naming some of the biggest stars in the game as steroid users, and Palmeiro was one of them. Suddenly, the entire sport seemed under a cloud of suspicion. But here's where it gets interesting. At this point in time, no major star had actually tested positive for steroids. The rumors were swirling, the accusations were flying, but from the public's point of view, there was still no hard evidence. But then, only 6 weeks later, the unthinkable happened. Palmeiro received a call from the Players Association that would forever alter his legacy. He had tested positive for stanozolol, a performance-enhancing steroid commonly known as Winstrol. The substance, widely circulated in underground fitness circles across the country, had somehow made its way into Palmeiro's system. And in that moment, everything he had stood for crumbled. Palmeiro stood firm in his belief that he was innocent and quickly ordered an appeal. He argued that the positive test result likely came from a contaminated vial of B12 vitamins, which had been injected into him by his wife. According to Palmeiro, the vial was provided by his teammate Miguel Tejada. The arbitration panel found Palmeiro's defense to be compelling, but without any solid evidence to counter the positive test, his grievance was officially denied on August 1st. Interestingly, just the day before, on July 31st, in the bottom of the 9th inning, Palmeiro hit what would turn out to be a fairly meaningless single to left field during an equally meaningless home game against the Chicago White Sox. But while the game itself didn't matter much, Palmeiro had been quietly battling to clear his name for months, hoping to reverse the test result and save his reputation. With a suspension hanging over him, Palmeiro didn't say a word to his teammates after the game. Instead, he simply packed up his things and left, flying off to Teterboro, New Jersey, with his wife Lynn and their 2 sons, who by then knew about his situation. When he woke up the next day, the fallout was nothing short of catastrophic. Major League Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig announced that Palmeiro would serve a 10-game suspension, officially making him the first big star to be suspended for steroid use. The story immediately dominated every major news outlet across the country, and the reaction from baseball fans ranged from pure shock to outright anger. Once the suspension was over, Palmeiro returned to the field on what had originally been planned as Rafael Palmeiro Appreciation Day in Baltimore. However, instead of receiving the warm reception he might have expected, he was met with a mixed crowd, some booing, others chanting his name. It was a far cry from the celebration it was supposed to be. In the games that followed, Palmeiro, one of the greatest hitters of his time, seemed like a shadow of his former self. Reflecting on that difficult time, he said, "I crawled the rest of the way. I was barely functional." He struggled through a painful 2-for-26 slump, and by September, after missing several games due to injury, the Orioles advised him to sit out the rest of the season. That's how it all ended. No big announcement, no farewell celebration. That was my retirement, he says. I didn't get to go out on my own terms. They just sent me home. The story of how a star was born.
Full count ready. The pitch to the left-handed hitter. Fastball grounded into right field. Base hit. Now the pitch. Palmeiro swings and drives one deep into right center. Back goes.
Palmeiro made his major league debut on September 8, 1986, playing left field for the Chicago Cubs in a game against the Philadelphia Phillies at Wrigley Field. During his first season, he appeared in 22 games, hitting .247 with 12 RBIs and 3 home runs. The following year, he played in 84 games, racking up 61 hits, 14 home runs, and 30 RBIs with a solid .276 batting average. While with the Cubs, Palmeiro primarily played in left field, but occasionally filled in at other outfield positions or first base when needed. Palmeiro signed a 5-year contract worth over $30 million with the Baltimore Orioles. In his first season with the team, which was cut short by a work stoppage, he hit 23 home runs and drove in 76 RBIs. Before 1995, Palmeiro had only hit more than 30 home runs once. But from 1995 onward, he began a remarkable streak of hitting 38 or more home runs every season until 2003. In 1996, Palmeiro led the Orioles in home runs, batting average, in RBIs, hitting 39 home runs, driving in 142 runs, and collecting 181 hits. He helped the team secure a spot in the postseason as the American League wild card, marking both his first playoff appearance and the Orioles' first since 1983. In 1997, despite striking out 109 times and batting .254, Palmeiro hit 38 home runs, drove in 110 runs, and collected 156 hits, helping the Orioles win their first division title since 1983. He also won his first Rawlings Gold Glove Award that season. In the playoffs, he had 10 hits, 2 RBIs, and 1 home run, batting .265 over 10 games. In his final season of his first stint with the Orioles in 1998, Palmeiro hit 43 home runs, leading the team for the 4th consecutive year. He also had 183 hits, 121 RBIs, and a .296 batting average. Palmeiro was offered a 5-year, $50 million deal to stay with the Orioles, but chose to return to the Rangers for 5 years and $45 million instead, wanting to be closer to his family in the Dallas area. In his second stint with the Rangers, he averaged 157 games per season. In his first year back, he hit 47 home runs, batted .324, and collected 183 hits. Over his 5 years with the Rangers, he consistently hit over 100 RBIs each season and totaled 214 home runs, though his batting average fell to .260 by his final year in 2003. He also hit his 500th home run with the Rangers in 2003. That year, the team made the playoffs, but was swept by the Yankees in the AL Division Series. Palmeiro rejoined the Orioles in 2004 on a 1-year, $4 million deal. He aimed to retire as an Oriole and make the Hall of Fame with the team. Despite a decline in power, he became one of 6 players to hit 200 home runs for 2 different teams. In 2005, he hit his 563rd home run and reached 3,000 hits, joining an elite group of players. However, shortly after, he was suspended for 10 days for a positive steroid test, which he claimed was due to a tainted B12 shot from a teammate. After the suspension, he played only a few more games, mostly under a cloud of controversy and injury. He finished his career with 2,131 hits, the most by any player who never appeared in a World Series. That is it for this one, but if you happen to like MLB Legends, make sure to check out our latest videos on our channel, Baseball Icons. I'm sure you will love it. Oh, and while you're at it, drop a comment telling us who to cover next, and don't forget to subscribe.